Unfortunately, we still have to discuss something else. And this is from a former member of parliament and a former deputy prime minister. And of course, he's a political leader in this country and has also a political party that he chairs. That's Musalia Mudavadi. Let's listen to this first.
Ikiwa Safaricom is the richest, inawezekana namna gani mimi mtu mmoja natoa pesa kila weekend, kila pahali kushinda hata Safaricom? Nikitoka kule na nimechukua sanduku la wenyewe limejaa nguo, nikimbie niingie hapa kwa kanisa, mutanisukuma nje na museme we don't want to be associated with you because you are handling stolen goods. Peleka hizo nguo ambao umeiba huko nje. Je, nikikuja na briefcase imejaa pesa, mtanifukuza? Has it ever occurred to you that if somebody is able to generate so much resource and donate so much, why didn't he feature as one of the largest taxpayers the other day when the president was honoring the premium taxpayers?
Nimejipanga na kanisa kwa sababu siwezi kuwa hasla hapa duniani alafu niende nikuwe hasla tena mbinguni. Hapana, hiyo haiwezekani.
All right, that's a good point to begin this discussion also. And Ruto has remained, the DP has remained very consistent. He said he's not going to back off donations to the church. But now Musalia is pushing it and asking the churches not to accept. And for good reason, I'll begin with Bonnie. Bonnie, you had an issue with Ruto and you have explained this. Yes. Just even on this show, you've explained it. I'm just bringing it back because this discussion is coming from ANC now. Obviously, people don't understand how he's able to do that. But the new way of looking at it is how much would you generate and why is it that you're not featuring as a huge taxpayer for you to be able to do this? I know you've explained this, but now from that angle that ANC wants it to seem to be something greater than what we're looking at.
The concerns of the party leader of ANC are genuine. Those are good questions. But if they were being asked by somebody else, for example, being asked by Bonnie Khalwale, it would be understandable. In his case, I'm afraid I read more of political fever in his stomach to the extent that obviously Ruto is his competitor, and it is concerning that through those Harambee donations, Ruto might be finding his way into the hearts of the voters.
Okay.
So to me, he's raising it as a personal concern that how can I contain this guy?
But he's not the only one who's raised it, Bonnie.
Can I? Who can help me to stop this guy? Because if he continues this way,
and the whole of Western.
Yes, he leaves me with no chance. If he was responding by giving his own clean money, if Ruto's money is dirty, it would make sense. So I would urge him, for every dirty money that he thinks Ruto is giving, he should be seen to give his clean money.
Okay, but even Harambee was outlawed a few years ago, if I remember. Public officers are not supposed to go for this donation. But let me hear from Musalia.
You know, Harambee is a very good thing. In fact, it's a uniquely Kenyan thing. And it has helped with hospital bills. It has helped in very many spheres. But Harambee can also be abused. And Harambee can also be a driver of corruption. These are facts that we all know. And yes, you are right, the law does not allow public servants to get into that. And we also know that Harambee is not a substitute for actual development. So yes, you can use Harambee to warm your way into people's hearts. And that's one of the ones I say abusing Harambee, to use it to purportedly warm your way into people's hearts. So I think Musalia has a point. And even if they are competitors, then why not? Why shouldn't he say his bit? He should say his bit. And I think he has a point. Because if Safaricom Foundation which gets money from Safaricom, the company, is unable to give that kind of money, and yet is the richest company in this country. I think it's good to compare, and actually he's right. What are the tax records like? Because if to be able to give that kind of money, it means you are generating a very huge amount of money, and that should also be reflected at Times Towers.
Okay.
If it's not reflected at Times Towers, so these are valid questions, really. And what beats me in this country is that every time we make a step forward, we do two backwards. So we end up getting nowhere. I think this is something that we really need to look at, this Harambee matter. This Harambee matter is something that, while it's helpful, but I think we need to regulate it. We need to regulate it and also have it in such a way that, like the philanthropists who give, Manu Chandare is very rich. He gives, but not that way. He goes and maybe builds something in a hospital. It's something that helps the community, you know. So we say, okay, churches, we want to build churches. And I would say that for us Christians, we are very aware, although we don't want to say it, that a number of churches are personal business enterprises of those individuals. So if you are looking at it as a way of going to heaven, no.
We should do what Kagame did in Rwanda.
Some of those churches will not get you to heaven. Those are just personal family enterprises.
Okay.
And I think this particular issue that Musalia has raised, many will be uncomfortable with it, but he has said the truth. I think he's coming of age in politics. I think it's good. He started hitting out. Otherwise, he's been too calm, and people have been thinking that he's too nice. So I think even the way he put it was too nice. I think he should be more hard-hitting. I think he was too nice.
Okay. Aaron, does it concern you also?
Yeah, first of all, I think this is the second time I'm seeing Musalia raise this, though he doesn't appear to mention anyone particularly. Of course, good reason is that you can deduce using deductive reasoning who he's talking about, because I saw him raise this during the funeral of Kalonzo Musyoka's dad, and also now that he raised it on Sunday. You know, in the arrest of there are salient issues about what he's discussing, about the need for us to consider those who are giving this amount and to establish the source. But the way in which he's going about it, I agree with Boni Alwale that these are political fevers. He's feeling the heat, and therefore, because he feels that he cannot match up, he wants to sort of divert attention. Because he's one of all, he's being mischievous and he's lying. Who said that as a taxpayer, the only way, for example, even for me personally, the only way for you to know how much tax I've paid is to check my individual personal tax record? I mean, people have businesses. They don't pay taxes in their name. They pay taxes using their other businesses. Therefore, for him to carry out that allegation, that is misleading, especially as a former finance minister. He knows he's lying. Secondly, as Boni says, if you feel that whatever others are giving is dirty, and you agree with the church, because I'm sure even in that particular church, it's only that you people are cheekily avoiding to show, chances are he gave a donation. Why doesn't he match it with what he considers to be his own clean money? Because
maybe he doesn't have the money.
If he doesn't have, then he should stop complaining about those who have something to give. Because in the arrest of the mean, no one is complaining. So this other one of the generous, why is he so concerned about it? So it's not very neat thing and a very neat debate. People do Harambes based on need. And I think one of the ways in which we've been able to build many of our churches, for example, because I saw him speaking in a church, is through Harambee. Because, you know, for example, you cannot fund a church through either CDF or government, yet it is a social amenity that society needs. People need a house of prayer, somewhere to go and find divine intervention for whatever challenges they are facing in life. So how does he want us to go about it? And people do it. And also, secondly, what is this obsession with one particular person? I thought almost every other politician in the country does public fundraisers. Kimani Wamatangi here, I saw you last week on Sunday. you were conducting one in your county. If we were to use the reasoning of Musalia, we have to calculate what you gave. Is it commensurate with
To the tax he pays.
with the tax you pay? Surely, what kind of warped reasoning is that?
But does Wamatangi donate every weekend? Is he doing Harambes every weekend? And is he donating it in terms of millions? Or it doesn't matter?
I can assure you that one I am sure he does almost on every weekend. Because
in millions.
At least I skip one weekend because I'm not as wealthy as Wamatangi. But
Okay, Wamatangi. Yes.
If you read Matthew chapter 6, if we read Matthew chapter 6, especially the churches, then they'll know what they are doing is ungodly.
what does it say?
Okay. Anyway, I think it was my opportunity. So, Bonnie Halwale, I will bring your Bible. we know in the script of bullfighting.
The Bible doesn't.
Two things I wanted to say, Ken. First is I actually was a member of a committee that was formed by Parliament before to discuss on a bill that had been proposed by the then Senator Anyang' Nyong'o, who is now the governor for Kisumu. And this bill was then intended to regulate Harambes in this country. And we went around this country listening to people all over in Kakamega, in Nairobi, in Mombasa. And Kenyans returned the verdict simply. They said, we want our Harambes the way we've had them. We tried to introduce some proposals in there. Have a system of being able to account for Harambe money, the blah blah, the source, and so many things. But Kenyans were unanimous that time. Actually, the bill didn't even move far. They said the way we know our Harambe, the way we have had it, that is the way we want it. Okay. Now, having said that, though, I think two things I would like to mention on this one. First is I believe that the views by, and you forgot to say, Ken, that Musalia Mudavadi was also a vice president.
Yes, at some point.
Yes, I think you forgot
the
that.
end of Moi's term.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's a senior position to have been held by him then. And sometimes in the past, although I have not had him on record saying that he wants to run for president, Bonnie, and if he is,
It's too shy to say.
and if he is, he'll be saying very soon. But some of the issues he's taken, and earlier on I've seen him taking a more broader approach and a more global approach to issues. But this one, I think he has narrowed it down to a lot of personalization, which first in my view is unlike him, but I also in my view, which I think is also not very popular.
According to Eseli, he's becoming bolder.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the question I also wanted to move to ask Eseli, who is older than who? I mean, because he said that Musalia is coming of age.
In politics.
In politics.
In
I mean,
politics,
that's what I'm saying. I wanted to know who is older than who in politics between the two. But however, I think when he narrows the scope to that personal approach, then he loses grip on the appeal and impression he's had before, because personalizing this thing, and I want to say it in very few words, Ken. One, Kenyans are not good givers. Kenyans are not philanthropic. Take my word for it. If you look if you go around to Pokot, go to Baringo, go to wherever and interview the people, they ask them who has built these small healthcare centers or welfare places or rescue centers or such facilities. They will tell you it is the Red Cross, it is a donation from NORAD in Norway, Bill Gates came here to donate malaria drugs, and so on. And if you went down deep into the accounts of several billionaires in Kenya, there are people who sit over mountains of money and they never give
anything to the
they
society.
Never. Actually, we do not believe that philanthropy is something that we should practice fervently. So I say this then. I think because I'm a businessman, and Senator Cheriot is very wrong in saying that I'm wealthy. I'm yet to be wealthy. but I'm an entrepreneur. I work hard. I have done business for many years, and I choose to do one thing personally. Through my Wamatangi Foundation, I choose to give. And Ken, for avoidance of doubt, I give every weekend. I give every day. And I give what I have. Just like that Bible verse, and you can read that to Boni Halwale when you get that Bible, of that Samaritan woman who gave no matter how little, but all they had. So you see, in this concept of giving, you give what you have got. In business, Ken, you cannot judge somebody by what you see in them. There are people here who are so plain looking, yet they sit on billions. And let me tell you one thing, and I'm not going to try to be an advocate for the deputy president. I can't even attempt to be his advocate on this one, because I don't know his internal workings and his businesses. But I can tell you one thing I know. There are so many people in this country who are 10 times, 100 times more richer than he is.
But they don't give.
Including that Musa.
Now, and I'm not politicizing mine. I'm being factual about what I know happens. So when it comes to somebody choosing to give, and you judge him by probably what he has given, there could be many things you do not know about that person. I mean, we do business, Ken, that we do not either pronounce, that we do not show, we do not project. You have other sources of income. There are people who are smart entrepreneurs. So you can have your incomes without people saying. And lastly, because there was that comparison with Safaricom, I think the distinction is in the format in which you choose to give. If you come to my county in Kiambu, in a place called Gatondo North, Safaricom Foundation came and put up a center of excellence, a huge one, worth billions, and we are very proud of it. Very good. And actually it was commissioned the other day by His Excellency, the President. Now, that is their way of giving. You couldn't quantify, or probably you may not quantify how much they've invested in there. But so many people are going to benefit from that institution so many years over, and definitely it's valuable. Now, if you choose to give through probably your daily donations or weekly donations or to churches like I do, I run community vans in 12 sub-counties in Kiambu daily to give free service to people. I fuel, I do everything, I pay drivers, I run schools that educate young people who are from poor families in IT courses, and they don't pay a penny. I look for money to do that for them. I donate tanks. That's why I'm called Wamatangi. But for me, that spirit lives. That if I get, then I have to give. And that's the only way I can get more. So I was making that case, Ken, so that, you know, in the blanket condemnation, there are people who are spirited differently. And maybe we could be looking at, I'm not saying we are, I said we could. So that people should not misconstrue that I'm trying to make a useless or a stupid, defense. But I know that there are people who can't avoid to give.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, before Bonnie speak, he mentioned Matthew 6, right? Yes. I got it, Matthew 6:2, right? Yes. Matthew 6:2 says, so when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, to be honored by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you give it to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. I think that's what he wanted to do. What he wanted to speak.
I just wanted to say something which to me I think is starting to burn me. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. Any practicing politician of whatever standard knows that you cannot run away from charity. It is so vicious that when you wake up in your home on an ordinary day in the village and you are an MP, you are unlikely to have less than 100 people in the compound. And they all come with genuine little things. Mm-hmm. So you respond to that charity. By the way, since the ANC leader has chosen to handle it this way, could he tell me, if donations are bad, how come?
I don't think he said donations are bad.
Can I?
No. He didn't say donations are bad.
Okay, finish then I'll talk.
No, yeah, finish.
Okay. If donations are bad, And if people must be questioned for where they got the money to donate, could he tell me, did he tell the public, over the last 3 weeks, I have been with him when he's giving and other people are giving. We were with him in Kakamega, in a fundraising for the victims of the Fort Tenant. He gave money. Nobody asked him to explain where he got the money from.
How much was it?
Yeah?
How much was it?
The money he gave?
Yes. Yes, that donation in Kakamega.
He gave 100,000.
Okay.
When he lost his candidate, former candidate for ANC, for Nabaholo constituency, again this month, he gave also again another contribution. We were with him, in fact, hours before he made that statement, we had been at a fundraising in Kakamega at Bohongo Stadium for women, and he sent his contribution. He did not accompany it with a footnote saying that this is where I sourced this money. He should give us a break to that extent. Okay. Because some of us, we come from very humble background. And when we pull up these people, we feel that we are giving them a chance in life, and possibly their children can be like us. Wamatangi has explained, but let me say something I do. In Ekolomani, one of the tricks that I used for the standards of education to go up is that I opened a shop where I employed a tailor, and I would buy materials of different colors of the uniforms used, so that every primary school children who doesn't have uniform would come into my home, and I sign a small note, and they are fitted uniform. Okay. 2, I have a school for special children called Malinya Girls High School. At Malinya Girls High School, for every child who is admitted in Form 1, they come through my home and I fit them with uniform. My own contribution to education. We want to ask not only just the ANC leader, but other leaders also, not just to be expecting people to vote for them, they should respond to their social needs. It is extremely important. Some people, I remember one of our best MPs in Ekolomani was Seth Lugonzo. In Seth Lugonzo's home, they used to cook breakfast, and the children would pass through Seth Lugonzo's home to take porridge as they go to school. These are the things that are expected of an African leader. We are not practicing leadership in Europe, or are we practicing leadership in privileged societies?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you can justify this or rubbish it, condemn it, either way. Yes, Harambee is a way of life. But as you've ably read Matthew chapter 6:2, if almost 50 years since independence, we are still relying on so much charity, despite our budget being what it is telling you something, that the government has failed in its role. If the dependence on charity is still this high, despite the growing, so-called growing economy, so-called growing GDP, blah, 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 it tells you we've misplaced priorities. So this issue of Harambees, especially this time, there are so many, not as they used to be, there are so many now, because once Kenyans see the top leadership is into Harambees, they will also follow the same route, because the top leadership is into Harambees. During Kibaki's time, when they were not so much into Harambees, the citizens also reduced the Harambee situation. But then, okay, then CDF came around, which actually elevated some of the needs because of bursaries and so on and so forth. But what I want to say is, if at this day and age, we are still relying so much on charity, it means that our poverty levels are actually growing, they are not reducing, despite our budget growing.
Okay.
That means the government has misplaced priorities. Otherwise, the reliance on charity should be reducing. And perhaps let's look at the Safaricom model that Wamatangi just said, Senator Wamatangi just said. Look at the Chandaria Foundation model of charity. The Safaricom Foundation actually built for me a full-fledged theater at a hospital in Tongaren constituency. Operation theater, fully fledged. That's Safaricom Foundation. You look at people like Chandaria Foundation. So I think the way we actually do our harambe, or what you would call philanthropy,
is what matters.
Is what matters.
Okay.
It's just that now it is being used as a political tool. That's the unfortunate thing about it. Because once we decide to use it as a political tool,
yes,
then what we are saying, that for you to ascend to high office, you must have such an astronomical amount of money.
Okay.
Because if we follow his argument that perhaps Musalia is feeling the heat because the DP is giving so much money, which he's unable to give, then what we are saying is, for you to ascend to that high office, you must have so much money that you are giving every time. That is not to say that harambes are bad. No. It's just the way we go about it. I think let's accept that the government has failed in its role, that the poverty levels have continued going up, so it has made an opening for charity to thrive, and of course, those who misuse charity,
that opportunity,
the opportunists,
yeah,
who misuse charity, as by Matthew chapter 6, are thriving.
The other argument, as you speak, Mheshimiwa Senator, is that as a politician, especially your backyard, you don't present opportunities that grow people, right? You don't do large-scale sort of opportunities that benefit a lot of people, if it's school needed or hospitals or such. So what it means then is you take the little money you have and mesmerize people with. So you impoverish them so much that they have to depend on you as a psych. I know of a political leader in this country who's been accused of impoverishing his people so much as to make them dependent on him. So that's another way of looking at him, so that they always have to come back to you for donations all the time, because you don't want to do lump sum, you don't want to do a center, you don't want to do a hospital, you don't want, and yet it's possible at the end of the day.
Well, that forms that's a good basis for us to examine the claims, for example, by Seli, that to emancipate a society, you need the government. And therefore, to find a society that is struggling as the one that you're discussing or the one that you lead, then it tells you that, one, you need government, or two, a strong cooperation. If you try the route that you're suggesting, it's possible, but how much can you do as an individual? Even these harambes that we are discussing and we are talking about, it is not that once they are done, it completely sorts of that particular problem, but you're only trying to stop, or you only do as much as you can as an individual. Therefore, what you are saying is not any different from what we are pushing. Those of us who say the spirit of giving, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. I just want to take an issue with Eseli, because he appears to be keen on Matthew 6. You know, Eseli, don't make the classic mistake that drunkards make of reading one verse in the Bible and running away with it, where it says that drink wine and make merry. Therefore, they go and drink the whole night and say that it is a Bible. You know, you have to read the Bible wholesomely. It's indeed the same Bible that tells us in Acts chapter 20, verse 35, that the Lord, it is more blessed to give than to receive. The same Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians 9:16 that the Lord loves a cheerful giver. So you cannot just extrapolate a particular.
Does it say the Lord loves a cheerful giver? Does it say the giver is on shore?
No, my friend.
The thing is,
you're forgetting one thing.
The thing is, it's not saying that it should be on shore.
Matangi has just told you that apart from harambes, he does other charitable things, which he doesn't do in public. Yeah. I want to believe that for the same leader, the other things he does, the only reason why you get to know about the harambe is that the harambe is a public thing, and how it is organized, that you come and say, from Boni Alwale, he has given us 50,000,
but there's a
difference. 5,000.
There's a difference when you tell me, enda panga harambe nitakuja.
I want to remind you, is that what happened? Just as I conclude.
One chip in, yeah. One chip in.
Enda panga harambe nitakuja.
It's also important for people to know that when you are in leadership, you are better placed to mobilize resources. Meaning, for example, I can arrive at a harambe with a lot of money, not necessarily my own money. Being a leader, I can tell Wamatangi that there is a needy cause in Kakamega which I'm going to attend this weekend. And Wamatangi will gladly give me whatever he has. Let me give you, for example, an example of when there is a disaster. You see people arrive with blankets and all manner of things, food and so on. What I normally do is that I go to business people in Kakamega and I tell them, hey, what will you give me? This one gives me bread, this one gives me rice, this one gives me blankets, this one gives me mattresses, and I arrive at the scene and I give those things.
And it looks like it's your own.
Yeah, it looks like those are people who support my cause.
Okay.
That is called leadership. There's nothing wrong with it.
We didn't say there's anything wrong with
Even
it.
resources.
We didn't say there's anything wrong with philanthropy. There's
one
nothing
of the,
wrong with
one of the
philanthropy.
strongest attributes of former president of United States, Barack Obama, was his ability to raise funds. And you know how much he was able to generate for his campaign. This is not something that only happens in Africa. Yesterday, for your information, Ken, Michael Bloomberg, a top entrepreneur in the US and former mayor of New York, he gave 1.8 billion USD to Johns Hopkins University as charity. It tells you that people continue to do these things world over. And therefore, those who are hiding, trying to put an argument that, oh, the reason we don't give is because you don't steal, stop being mean. You are a leader. You've been given a platform. You know, and finally, but not to lose the point that maybe Eseli, Mheshimiwa Eseli is raising, is it a struggle for the young leaders? I agree with him, yes. I sit in Parliament. There's a corner in Parliament that is now infamously known as a frustration square, where you find members of Parliament taking the tea that we signed for and lunch. Many other times, if you keenly look, you'll find it is mostly the young leaders, the guys who've come in for their first term, are struggling to keep up with these demands that Boni Alwale is talking about. Therefore, is it a discussion that you may want? Because there is good reason. And it is not false that there are people who steal under the pretext that I will steal and go and give, therefore it sanctifies it. Therefore, it's sort of like an egg and chicken issue about it.
Okay.
It's not that what Eseli is saying is completely untrue.
Let's conclude this with Wamatangi, because I want to touch briefly on the gender bill, just briefly, and on the public service bill. Wamatangi.
Yes, Ken, I am not a proponent of that as a country, that we should be keen on building a welfare nation or a welfare system where people are dependent on either handouts or being given free either money, resources, without having to either work or pay for them. That kind of system never works. Actually, if you do your analysis, you realize that sometimes how you find countries like the United States struggling a lot with huge budgets and so on is because of their welfare system. And if you compare a nation like that maybe with other countries, for example, like Singapore, which have chosen to introduce a system where you are supported but you work for what you get. I think those two systems work differently. But that does not mean that we should not support causes, for example, and I put that in captions under philanthropy, because it is noble, it is good. I mean, the whole world over, it works well. Once you receive, it is also important to give back to society. That's even why in companies there is a vote and a kitty and a CSR, such that it should be recognized that giving back to community is a good thing. Now, what we just need to do is to make sure that as we give in a neat, organized way that is targeted, that is intended to help support welfare in a way that will enable people, but not necessarily to the extent that it becomes handouts. As Senator Cheruiyot says, you find that now has become a big problem in our politics, because if you do not have money to go and dish out and give in hundreds and 50s and 200 notes, especially during political campaigns, you don't have a good chance of seeing political office. And I think that's why we have to make the distinction. If we can reorganize our philanthropy when we give in, especially as political leaders, and we do that in a way that we know is targeted, so that it can be for the long term and probably an ingrained way of investing in communities, I think it will be of a lot much more value, such that we don't seem to be wholesomely condemning giving back to communities.
Okay.